Today I want to discuss the difficult topic of telephones and why should we abandon and ban mobile telephones from schools and from schools like elementary schools and middle schools and high schools. Why this is an issue? I'm from Poland, and in Poland there is a discussion right now in Polish Parliament about doing such steps, and why. Why this is, of course, this is a controversial topic, but why it is necessary. I am a kid of the 90s. I was born in 1984, 1984. So I'm like 41, 42 years old, and we didn't have mobile phones. We didn't have mobile phones in Poland. They arrived in middle, let's say in middle 90s, in early, but most probably to earlier public early 2000s. And mobile phones were not the only novelty. Of course, the bigger novelty were computers, and especially computers combined with internet connection. In Poland, the internet began to appear in late 90s. Like we as a family had internet in 1997, but we were one of the few. It was very early as for Poland standards, and of course the internet was not a full day, only couple of hours per day. And the internet connection completely changed the use of computers, because earlier computers were used by professionals to do some programming, for example, in work, of course, computer gaming. So gamers were very fond of computers, different formats like Amiga computers, Atari computers, Commodore computers, ZX Spectrum computers, and so on. For example, it was very fast for me to be addicted to from computer gaming. For me, it was really an addiction because I am a disabled person. I am a lame person. One of my legs is, let's say, damaged. So I have never liked to walk long distances, and I prefer to stay and sit and do something in this position. So computers and computer gaming was for me favorable part of my free time after school. Especially because, let's say, when I was a kid till 13, 14, okay, being with your friends was the most important part. But after that, when I have begun of being a teenager, it was a little bit different. So computer and computer gaming was more and more likable for me, and I could spend many hours playing computer games, to the point that my parents gave me a restriction that I can only play in the weekends, and in normal days I cannot use computer. And for me it was, of course, I didn't like it. I oppose it, but I finally I accepted it. I accepted it as a solution, maybe temporary, maybe not, but as a solution. But even then, I liked computer gaming so much that I liked to even talk about them in school or in our free times between lessons. So I was addicted to that point that I always wanted to buy a laptop, and then maybe even bring him to the school to play. Of course, it was not possible because we were too poor. Laptops were very expensive, even in the late 2000. So it was not possible. But if it could be done, I would have done it. So for me, and I, even though I I finished school in rather good grades. In good grades, maybe not very good, but good enough. I have finished good Polish university, Uniwersytet Warszawski, and let's say that my financial situation right now is maybe not good, but stable enough. Stable enough. And I have finished my studies. I was even working as a history teacher. So let's say that I have my dose of knowledge throughout the years. But but computers and internet was even then only for like maybe 10% of population, 50%, 15% of population. Rest of my friends completely weren't interested in gaming, in playing, in internet, and so on. But as I grew older, I have noticed that and in the late 90s, mobile phones started to appearing in Poland, but they were only to call and to eventually write an SMS information message. But later, of course, the telephones, mobile phones were so powerful that they could be the computer itself, and because of the touchpad like keyboard, the screen sizes are right now much more bigger than before, and 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 it was really a catastrophe. I'm saying about from the point of our kids and our children, our teenagers, because then you have you know, as a kid and as a teenager, that there are like two times. One is the time of school and the time of your chores, and the second time is the time of your free time, when you can, for example, play with your friends, talk to them, but you can also use your computer and play in games or browse internet. But unfortunately, uh, telephones were bigger, more advanced than internet was possible on them, and because of these touch big screens, you can even play on them, even though you don't have proper controls, like you don't have almost nothing, but still it is feasible to use social media on mobile phones, to even play in primitive simple games, but nevertheless you can play in games. And you can take the mobile phone everywhere. So for example, I see very often that in McDonald's there are almost like sometimes hundreds of kids and children, teenagers, and they are, for example, they are chilling out, okay, but most of the time they are playing something on their on their mobile phone, or they're using it in social media like way, and all of that would not be bad, but because it's so feasible, it's so broad, that that our that even our focus span on something is much shorter than before. I remember that maybe 5 7 years ago, that I read 12 books per year, something like that, 12 books per year, as a rather, let's say, scientific history like person. Right now I'm reading like, let's say, 6 books, 7 books per year, so half of and I still have the same amount of time, the same amount of resources, financial and so on resources, so nothing else changed. But I see that even my focus span on something is much shorter than it was 5, 10 years ago. And I am an adult person, still like young, middle-aged guy. But kids and children, of course, their focus span is even shorter than an adult person, and because of that, they are more and more susceptible to very fast, glowing, like rather stupid games when they don't have to use their thinking very often. Because, for example, when you were playing computer games in the early 90s, you need to know something about English. You need to know how to use a computer. Not all computers had hard drives, so you need to use like small discs or CD-ROMs to play computer games. So it was not so obvious and so simple to just play in a computer game. And most of game, even those like Doom-like first-person shooters, you need to know a little bit of English. And right now, because all those games on mobiles need to be simple, because you only have 2 3 likes buttons, and these buttons are not even real, they are just on this screen like keyboard, touch like keyboard. These games are so simple that they are stupid and primitive. And for example, I'm talking with teachers right now, and teachers from physical education, that students, like let's say like 10, 11, 12 years olds, like kids, are much, they have less and less strength and stamina. That, for example, students of their age 30, 40, 20 even years ago. Why is it that? Because kids don't play in sports like games. They play on something which is more fun, more cool to them. And of course, computer games are really cool, are really fun, and there are many of them. You like shooters, you play in shooters. You like strategies, you can even play on some strategies on telephones today. So you can play in many different genres of computer games, or just use social media. For example, I see that this new platform TikTok is even, I would say it's even worse than YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Instagrams together, because I see that people are not watching movies on TikTok, but they are sweeping movies on TikTok. So 2 seconds, 2 seconds sweep, 2 seconds, 2 seconds sweep. So they don't even watch the movie or the clip on TikTok. They just prefer to swipe, to just be interesting what will be next, and maybe this next thing will be interesting. And because of that, of course, our focus to do some things properly is much more shorter. And because of that, students cannot do more complicated tasks, because of course more complicated tasks, more difficult ones, needs a time, a proper, let's say, preparation to do it, a proper strategy how to do it, a proper way how to do it, what can I do first, one second, what is the last thing. And in this, and because, and of course, the internet and computer gaming and social media is addictive. It's an addictive thing for all of us. But I have noticed that because of telephones, right now all people are using them like we used computers before. Because even now, when you want to use a laptop or a computer, it's not so simple. You need to be in your house, you need to have a chair, you need to have a desk. So it's not so simple to just run a laptop and use it. You need to have a mouse, and so on and so on. But on the telephone, you can do all these things wherever you are and whenever you want to do them, in every time of the day. And of course, parents are doing some things for their children to use mobile phones only, let's say, an hour per day. So this is okay, but in schools you cannot mix pupils, students' free time with sacred time of chores, with sacred time. I'm saying sacred like this is some kind of a bombastic explanation, but it is sacred in a way that you know that, for example, you are going to school, you don't like lessons, you don't like listen to the teachers and so on, but you know that for some reason you need to go to school. Yes, you need to go to school to have a proper, better education, better job, better life, lighter life. And then after all those boring, tiring lessons, you have your free time and you can finally do whatever you want. In our case, you can just play or use your mobile phone. But because pupils can have their mobile phones in school and even on classes, you don't exactly know what is proper, what is not proper. This is really dangerous because I see that teachers are seeing that we have more mental problems in our pupils, more problems with focusing. For example, historians are seeing the situation when, for example, you have a text, the pupil have a text, and he for example, this is a text from the past, and he needs to interpret this text. What is this text about? Something like that. And they see that the pupils don't know what they are reading. So they are reading something and they cannot tell proper interpretation or some different interpretations, but they cannot name the what they have really read a couple minutes before. And this is really dangerous because it means that they cannot focus properly on their tasks. You need to. I was always wondering why my colleagues were so loud and they were always chatting on TV, on classes. Because when you are in class, of course, you are bored. Let's say this is 45 minutes long, but you need to focus to do something properly. And even one student which is not focused can destroy the whole class influence and the teacher's lessons. Yes, and telephones even add worse things to that. That we will be reading less books, we will be less focused on difficult tasks, and only difficult tasks are really satisfactory for us, are and can give us really something which is worthy for us. Because if everything will be as simple as playing games on mobile phones, you will not have any real satisfaction from it, because they are too shiny, they are too glittering, they are too fast, they are too stupid, they are too simple. Real computer games are on consoles or on PC and laptops. These games on mobile phones are so popular not because they are good, or they are mostly not, and many of them have like microtransactions, but because they are so simple, they are addictive to someone who has a telephone. Let's say he's in McDonald's and he wants to do something, he wants to eat something, talk a little bit with his friends, and then play something. And I see this situation that, for example, students are eating something, they are chatting with each other, and then they are playing. And for me, it's okay. Like, you are playing together, you are discussing what you are playing, what your friend is playing, and so on. But in school, it needs to be forbidden, because it's too early for students to have such broad access to social media, some of them dangerous, very serious, toxicity, hate. So and they cannot, because social media are, for me for example, I see this, they are too fast. Even like Instagram and so on, they are too fast to do something properly. For example, most of my videos are like 20 minutes long, and I'm aware that for many viewers 20 minutes is a video far too long. But it is far too long because our own brains are more used to to have something in between, to not focus on one subject from 20 minutes. So for 20 minutes people cannot focus their attention to do something. And I see this, that I am even aware that, for example, I see some movie or I see some documentary I'm watching, and it's like 5 minutes, and I'm searching how many minutes passed. That I cannot turn myself off and focus on what is playing on this, let's say, movie, on this documentary. And kids, and of course school is extremely important, not only because they get knowledge or they know something new, but because the process of socialization, the socialization in school, in elementary school, in kindergarten, and in high school is the most important part of our lifetime socialization. It's the most important, because many of these, let's say, things which you will be doing as an adult, you will learn in elementary and in high school. So I'm really, I even done this movie in Polish to influence people. That I'm not sure what laws are in America, but I think it depends from the state. But telephones should be really banned from use in schools. Of course, there are exceptions to the students which need them because they are sick or something like that. But it is only for emergency. The telephones were, in the past, they were just machines to use as a form of your job, as a form of your chores. And right now it's mostly entertainment, but it is very fast entertainment because you cannot do anything complicated on only on a screen, and still it's fairly small screen. So you cannot really do advanced things on telephones. And they need to be fast. They need to be snappy. They need to be really very dynamic to use it properly, and for you to want to use them. So really, I'm afraid that because of this mobile massive usement of phones, our children have less physical stamina, but also less, let's say, spiritual stamina and social stamina to do complicated things like chores even, because every chore is quite difficult. When you want to make your bed, it's difficult. When you want to wash your let's say your clothes, it's difficult, and it's not so fast. As it's not that fast that you want to be it as fast as for example TikTok movies or TikTok clips. So really, I think that it should be immediately proposed to just ban the use, all use, let's say, because of course we have these special situations, but other than that, even for example in the 90s, I had a situation where when I was hurt in the head, and it hurt me, and my teacher phoned my parents, they came for me. But right now the student is focused more on a pleasure, on a leisure time because of the mobile phone. Earlier in the past, there were two separate entities, two separate environments. For example, you liked playing soccer, football. So you were playing it on the football ground, but after lessons. You liked watching movies. You did it, but after the lessons. Let me know in the comments what do you think. I think that social media and generally phones should be forbidden in all types of school except of course university and colleges. But in elementary schools, in kindergartens and in high school, ban and accept only very few exceptions to the rule.